Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of Ask the Expert. I'm Travis here at SILCA, and today we're going to go through a tubeless setup all the way from a wheel that is currently set up tubeless with sealant. We're going to clean it all out, put new rim tape in, change the valve core, and refresh it with new sealant. So we're going all the way through that way. That way we can kind of touch on a few of the little tips and tricks to clean out sealant and things like that too. So if you have a new wheel and you're getting set up tubeless for the first time or just on a new wheel, you can kind of skip ahead a little bit, and we'll link that in the description. Alrighty, we got everything that we need to set up this wheel. This is actually our demo wheel that we use at events, and if you've seen us out there stabbing holes in tires to kind of showcase the sealant. So I'll take you through all the different things that you need. That way you can have them prepped and ready to go ahead of time. That really saves a lot of time. So we have our wheel that's filled with sealant, ready to be changed out. We have our tire levers to take the tire on, or take the tire off, I'm sorry. We have shop towels to clean out the old sealant. And we have our sealant remover that does a really good job of taking out dried sealant. Acetone to finish the rim really cleanly. And that step is really important to give good adhesion to our rim tape. Make sure that we get a good stick there. Scissors to cut the rim tape. We actually have another little pair of scissors to cut a small hole or poke a small hole in the rim tape for the valve. And then we have a new valve core, and we'll finish off with our SILCA Ultimate Tubeless Sealant. Alrighty, for our first step, we're going to go ahead and let the air out of the tire, pull the tire off, and we're going to try to drain some of the sealant. Make sure you have a good place to do that, whether it's a cup if you want to save it. I have a trash can here that we're just going to go ahead and pour it into. We're going to start by letting the air out, and we'll let most of it out, and then we'll pull the valve core because we got a little bit of sealant stuck in there. So we're going to replace that later on, so might as well go ahead and get it out now. I'm going to put our tool on the valve core, and we're just going to pull it right off. Unthread a few times. You'll hear a rush of air as it all comes out. Alright. As you can probably see, we have quite a bit of sealant built up in here. This thing has seen many, many punctures and lots of spins. So unfortunately, that just kind of happens with tubeless sealant. So we'll let this air out, and we'll take one side off of the rim, sorry. We'll go ahead and break the bead with our hands. Get that off, slide it around. So, we're going to be very careful here not to do this too quickly so we don't lose a bunch of liquid. And as you can see, we have a pool of latex here that we're going to want to leave, or that will be in the tire, and we're going to want to pour that out here shortly. Alright, now that we have the bead off and a pool of sealant here, we're going to go ahead and pour that in our trash so that we don't make a mess. That way the bulk of the liquid sealant is already gone, and we can clean up just a little bit with our shop rags. Make sure you have plenty of those, because even doing it perfectly still can be a little bit of a mess. Alright. So now we're going to take this tire and we'll pull the tire. Actually, we're going to take that shop rag, just dry out any remaining liquid in there. Just try to help keep this as clean as possible. Alright. Now that we have most of the liquid out, we'll go ahead and pull the other side of the tire. First off, we're going to clean the rim bed just with a shop towel and try to get any liquid off of there. Just try to make these next steps a little bit easier. So the cleaner you can get it, drier you can get it with a shop towel, the less sealant remover, the less gear wipes, things like that you're going to need to use. So get that nice and dry. And then we're going to go ahead and pull the valve because we are going to replace the rim tape here. So get this off. Just like to put the nut back on the valve so that I don't lose track of it. And then a nice little trick, make sure we get any of the sealant that's out of here. The sealant remover, we're going to spray some of that in the valve. And really what this does, it doesn't break down latex or anything like that. It breaks the bond between latex and its surfaces. So what that's going to do is help it spray a little in each end, help that latex come out in the next few steps. We'll set that over here. And then we're going to take our sharp object to help us pull the rim tape. So we'll do that next. Alright, and we have our little pick here just to help pull up the rim tape that's already in place. And there's 2 layers of rim tape here, so we're just going to go ahead and peel those off, and then we'll take a gear wipe and try to get this as clean as possible, and then we'll finish with acetone. Alrighty, now that we have our rim tape off and just a bare rim, you can still see a little bit of sealant residue there. So we're going to go ahead and take a gear wipe and get that as clean as possible before we finish it off with acetone and get the tire prepped. If you don't have gear wipes at home, you can use any kind of degreaser and a towel. That will work really well too. Now I'm actually going to take the sealant remover here and spray that on the inside and just trying to get rid of some of the sealant in the spoke holes. So the cleaner we can get this, the better the rim tape can adhere to it and give you better performance over the long run. So putting in a little extra work here goes a long way. Alright, now that we have the sealant remover sitting on there, I'm going to set this wheel aside for a couple minutes, and we're just going to let that sealant remover do its thing. So for now we're going to move on to the tire and try to clean that out a little bit. We don't need to go crazy here and make sure that there's no sealant remnants or anything, but it is going to be a little bit easier to mount back up if we don't have clumps of sealant on the bead and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and take our shop rag and make sure we get this dried out as much as we can. Removing as much dried sealant as possible. So as you can probably see, we have a pretty good lining here. I think this tire has been punctured a couple hundred times. You know, we're doing it all day at a trade show or something, so there's quite a bit of patching in here. I would not recommend riding this tire on the road. Right, I'm going to go through here and pull off as much of these big chunks as I can, and then I'm going to hit it with some sealant remover just to get the bead a little bit cleaner. Typically your wheels at home are probably going to be cleaner than this one, but we'll go ahead and get this one cleaned off. Alrighty, now we're back to our rim. We've let the sealant remover kind of do its thing so that it's a little bit easier to get any last remnants of sealant off of the rim bed. So we're just going to go ahead and wipe it clean. And really what we're trying to do here is agitate that sealant. Like I said before, the sealant remover doesn't eat away at the sealant or anything like that, which is why it's safe to put on clothing and tables and wheels. But it does break down the bond between latex and a surface. So we're just trying to agitate that sealant to get it to be removed. We'll work our way around. Alrighty, now that we have our wheel nice and clean, there is a little bit of a residue on there, not sticky or anything to the touch, but we want to make sure that we give as clean and prepared of a surface as possible for the rim tape to stick to. So we'll go ahead and hit it with some acetone, clean that off, and then we'll be ready to tape the rim. Alright, now that we're ready for the acetone, we have that open. We're just going to take our shop rag. If you don't have acetone at home, that's okay. You can use rubbing alcohol, anything like that. We're really just looking for something that leaves no residue and flashes really quickly. So I'm going to start at the valve hole, just so that I know I have a good starting point. And I'm going to work my way around the rim. This isn't a place to be stingy either. I would go ahead and make sure you get plenty on there and let it flash off so that you have a really good surface for the tape to stick to. Alrighty, and now as you can see, we have a clean rim, and there's a little bit of sealant residue left in the spoke holes, but they're recessed down in there, so it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, now that we have the rim cleaned and prepped, free of any debris or residue, we're going to go ahead and tape the rim. One handy tip, make sure you have your scissors within reach. So last thing you want to do is get to the end of the wheel taping and realize that you don't have your scissors. So we're going to go ahead and use a tensilized polypropylene tape. Basically any tape that doesn't have branded printing on it is going to be way more durable than the printed stuff. Sometimes the carbon from the sealant can cause an abrasion issue where it rubs that off, and we don't want that to happen. So we have our tubeless tape here. I'm going to cut the folded piece off, and then we have it in the truing stand just to try to make things a little bit easier. You can do this on the ground if you want as well, but I'm actually going to find the valve hole without the valve in, and I'm going to start just a little past the valve hole. We're going to make sure we get that good and centered, and then hold it down nice and firm. And what we're going to do is really try to make sure that we get this stuck to the rim by pulling it tight and guiding it along the way so that it's centered. If you get it off center a little bit, it can make the tire really difficult to mount and allow sealant to get underneath there, and we don't want that. So this step is really important. We're going to pull tight, just little bits at a time. Making sure we get good adherence all the way around. And we're going to do 2 layers of tape so this wheel can hold a little higher pressures. Alright, that's 1 layer down. We'll go ahead and add a second layer here. Alright, now that we're coming to the end of the second roll, we're going to overlap the valve hole by just a little bit to the next spoke hole. Make sure we get really nice adherence all the way past. And then we'll take our scissors, cut there. Really going to make sure we press this in with our thumbs so that it's stuck everywhere. And then we're going to make one more pass around, just making sure everything is nice and stuck onto the rim. Alrighty, so if you have a new wheel that doesn't need retaped or something like that, you're probably going to be joining us somewhere around here. What we're getting ready to do is put the valve back in. We do need to make a small hole for that valve, but what we're going to do is put the valve core all the way in so that it's sturdy. We're just going to thread that back in. Go ahead and tighten it down a little bit with our tool and take that nut off of there so that we are ready to go when we poke this hole. And really the key here with making the hole for your valve is you want to make the smallest hole possible. In reason, you want to make a really tiny hole, not a slit or something like that, so that the valve itself can make the hole and not make it too big. Because the real risk here is that you make the hole too big and then sealant has to start filling holes, and the rim cavities are really not designed for that. So if that happens, you might have to just retape the wheel, which would be a shame. So we're going to go ahead and find our valve hole, make a little poke, and then, like I said, we're going to use the valve, find that hole, and let that be the exact size of our hole. Then we're going to take our little O-ring and the valve nut. Go ahead and tighten this down. So here you really don't want to go gung-ho tightening this down. Finger tight is plenty fine. You should never need a set of pliers or anything. So you don't want the other end of the valve to kind of pull through the tape and make that hole bigger. So just finger tight, perfect. Alright, so now that we have our valve installed, we're going to go ahead and seat the tire. So there's a few different things that we can do here to try to make this a little bit easier, and we're actually going to make a whole separate video on that, and we'll link it in the description. So go ahead and click there if seating a tire is something that's giving you some trouble. For this video, we're just going to go ahead and mount the tire, use a compressor to get it installed. Alright, the first step of mounting these tires and getting them seated is we're going to find the brand marking. This one's the WTB, and we're going to line that up with the valve and mount the first side. This just makes it a lot easier if you're trying to find a puncture and lining it up in the tire, if you're going to patch it later or something like that. Or if you need to put in an inner tube, that way you know where the puncture might be and you can check for any sharp objects or anything like that. So one nice little trick to getting these on is getting that bead in the center channel of the rim. Makes it the easiest to get on there. Alright, now that we have our rim cleaned, ready to go, our tire is mounted on one side. The next step here is we are going to flip this around and we're going to mount the second side of the tire, leaving just a little spot so that we can mount the tire and get the sealant in. So we're going to start away from the valve and finish at the valve. So we're just going to leave that little extra spot so that we have a nice platform to pour our sealant in. So now that we have this little place for our sealant to pool, we'll go ahead and get that open. And so this gravel tire, since we actually use this to puncture, we'll add a little extra sealant. This is an 8-ounce bottle, and we'll just do half in this tire, so you get 4 ounces. Normally it's anywhere from 3 to 4 for a tire, this gravel tire this size. All right. So now that we have it all poured in, we're just going to rotate the tire nice and slow to allow all that sealant to go down into the closed area of the tire. Now we're going to take our shop rag here, just clean up the little bit of sealant, make it easier to use our thumbs to push this on. We want to be careful not to use tire levers to put these on, even though it is tempting, so you don't damage the rim. Again, we're going to get both beads all the way in the center of the rim to give us the best, smallest diameter to put this tire on. Now we have this on. We got one little drop of sealant on the rim. Go ahead and wipe that off on the tire there. And then we're going to go to the easiest way to seat this tire, and that's going to be with our compressor. So we are going to open this up. You definitely want to make sure that your valve is all the way covered with the tire so you're not blowing air out the side. We'll hook it up, give it a couple quick blasts of air. Give the sealant a quick shake. It goes around. Let it do its thing. There, we can hear it seat. And there are a lot of little punctures in this wheel, so we're going to give it a spin. And now we have our wheel set up. So we will get a floor pump on it and get it up to pressure, and then we'll be all set. Now that tire is all set up, just as a recap, we took the tire off, cleaned out all the old sealant, took out the rim tape, cleaned out the rim really well and finished it with acetone, put new rim tape in, a new valve core, mounted the tire, poured in our sealant, and got it set up with a compressor. So if that tire didn't have 200 holes in it, it'd be ready to ride. But we'll keep taking that around to show off the sealant. So if you have any questions, ways that we could have done this a little bit better, ways you like to do it, let us know down in the comment section, or send us an email, sales@silca.cc, and we'd be happy to answer them. Thanks for joining.